Hello, I'm Colin Little, Chair of Pitlochry Festival Theatre. In our brief encounter with the theatre's history today, I wish to tell you about the theatre's founder, John Stewart. There's quite a bit to say, so this is the first of two parts. We know that John Stewart became involved in theatre from a young age, starting in the 1930s with the Curtain Theatre in Glasgow, which was an amateur theatrical group. This led to his establishing the Park Theatre Club in Glasgow's West End, which was a membership theatre in existence between 1941 and 1949, at first with amateur and later with professional actors. It was known as Glasgow's first little theatre. Whilst at the Park Theatre, John Stewart visited Glyndebourne, Malvern and Stratford, and considered that such a rural theatre could surely be established in Scotland in comparable scenic surroundings. His thoughts turned naturally to the beauty of Pitlochry, where he'd holidayed regularly with his family. In 1944, he went again to Pitlochry during the war to see if there might be a large building there with grounds which might suit his purpose. He found Knockandarroch House, an eminent Victorian villa situated on a prominent knoll above Lower Oakfield in the middle of Pitlochry, with sufficient level ground on which to build. Either then or on a subsequent visit to Pitlochry not long after, John Stewart wrote a note on a scrap of paper and put it in a hole in a wayside sign. We'll come back to that note. Before long, he'd sold his house in Glasgow and succeeded in purchasing Knockandarroch in Pitlochry. Meanwhile, the Park Theatre was still thriving, and by 1948 had toured Scotland, even playing at Pitlochry's Town Hall. Then, seemingly at the height of his success, and without much warning, John Stewart closed the theatre down, saying in his final curtain speech that Glasgow's loss will be Scotland's gain. In post-war Britain, no licences could be obtained from the Ministry of Works for building materials, steel or timber, except for anything considered absolutely essential, and a theatre was not considered essential. So John Stewart thought of erecting a tent instead to house his new theatre. He researched the possibility with visits to tented theatres in both London and Birmingham. He went ahead and bought a large tent, ordered curtains and purchased lights. He bought the best that his money could buy. It was Tom Johnson, the Secretary of State for Scotland, who on 19th May 1951 was asked to declare the new theatre open. And in his speech that day he said, "This theatre is a monument to one man's courage, one man's persistence, and one man's great faith. He asks for no subsidy, and he ventures his fortune." By using his fortune, John Stewart had ensured that his cherished dream had become a reality. It was as Victory in Europe Day was being celebrated that he went to retrieve that piece of paper he had left in a wayside post during the war, ironically very close to where the current Festival Theatre now stands. He read what he'd written during the war. This is what his note said. "When peace is declared, I shall return to this spot to give thanks to God and to establish my festival." He must have felt such a glow of satisfaction as he read those words. He'd achieved as best he could in really difficult circumstances what he'd promised himself to do. I shall continue John Stewart's story in another instalment. Thank you.